Greetings from Cybertron. This is SoundJack, here with another SoundJack's Rambles. And today I am here with Matt.
How you doing?
And today we are going to be talking about what we know of 2018's Power of the Primes toy line. Well, 2018 into 2019, probably.
Yep.
Yeah. But we do have a very good idea what's going on in 2018. So Matt, for those listeners uneducated about what Power of the Primes is, would you mind telling them what we expect from this toy line and what this toy line is, if you don't mind?
Power of the Primes is the part 3 of the Prime Wars trilogy. Part 3 of the Prime Wars trilogy. First started with Combiner Wars. Continue with Titan's Return, and then into this one for, like you said, next year. Did you do a lot of collecting with the Combiner Wars stuff?
I definitely did. I got all of the main combiners, so I got Superion, Menasor, Bruticus, Hotspot, Computron, even got Victorion. Didn't get a whole lot of like the Autobot repaints of stuff, though I did get Skylinks, and that was a very nice collection. How about you on the combiners?
I as far as combiners go, I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to Transformers fans, because the only combiner that really has my heart is Voltron. So, as far as Transformers goes, I was able to pick up the Menasor pretty cheap, so I got that one. But as far as that for Combiner Wars, I got Menasor and then a couple of the Legend Scales figures, and that's all I really dabbled in with that. But Titan's Return, I've definitely dove in head first. So, how about that one?
Yeah, Titan's Return, I pretty much have everything. My main exceptions are like Soundwave's cassette bots, because I kind of lost interest in those when it seemed like we weren't actually going to get all of them.
Right.
I don't have the retail. I don't have either of the retail Optimuses, just because they didn't interest me, and I got the Laser Prime from the Chaos on Velocitron box set. And I did not get the Seas on Cybertron box set because that sold out so fast.
I never saw either one of them.
I was lucky. I just happened to check my local Target right around my birthday, and that was like the first it happened to show up near my home. And those were the first signings, and I decided to check my local Toys R Us, and it was like right there, and it was like perfect birthday gift sealed in.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. Power of the Primes, though, we got some interesting stuff to talk about. The main thing going on with there's a few main things going on with the Power of the Primes toy line. The main gimmick is that the Primes are back. If you don't know, fictionally, the Primes, or the 13, are the original Transformers that sought Cybertron, Mythos, yada yada. But they're all getting figures per se, not necessarily of the portrayals that we've seen in fiction, but they're taking up the formerly Time Master class as a Prime Master class, and they are going to do similar transformations to the Time Masters, but come with what they call a decoy suit, which in reality is just evoking the pretender suits of G1 lore and G1 stuff. And then all the other figures are going to be able to interact with the Prime Masters, so it's going to be like they're taking on the power representative of the Prime. The other big thing with this, however, while the Prime Masters are kind of based on like the Time Masters in terms of the transformation and their interaction, the Deluxes and Voyages return to the Combiner Wars aesthetic with being able to combine.
It's like a combination of the other two. It's like they took the best parts and hopefully refined them.
Yeah.
And we'll have a kind of a really top tier representation of both play patterns, you know? Yes.
And while doing so, going to be introducing some very, very interesting characters from what we know so far, from what a whole bunch of leaks had told us before we even officially knew of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to go in order of how this information was released to us. So we're going to start off way back to San Diego Comic-Con, when we first had official confirmation that what this toy line was going to be about. And there we got revealed a handful of figures, at least one for each size class. So Matt, do you want to go ahead and tell us what we saw at San Diego Comic-Con?
Well, they started with a Prime Master and Liege Maximo, which is their take on Skullgrin, which is a figure I actually owned and is probably still somewhere in a box, long since forgotten. But I really like their take on these Pretender shells. It's a clever way to go about incorporating. I mean, the Pretender gimmick back in the day really was different, but it was so odd because you had full-size Transformers masquerading in human or some kind of beast-like outer shell, but they were, I guess, to the normal person, still massive. So I don't see, this makes a lot more sense now that they're smaller and quote-unquote human-sized. The shell makes sense now. So you have go ahead.
Yeah, well, back then, there are ways to get around that and make it make sense in the fiction. Was either have aliens who looked like humans that were 60 feet tall,
right,
or just have the human Pretender shells with the robots inside shrink down to actual human size, right, which both of them are kind of weird. But this does make... mass shifting, yay! But this does make a lot more sense, and I'm pretty sure the main designer at Hasbro, I can't remember his name, John Warden, I want to say it is.
For the current one, I don't know off the top of my head.
I remember... I did try to record this before. Yeah, it is John Warden, because I remember in a previous recording I tried to make it this. I said Josh Whedon, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But so John Warden is the correct answer. Correct answer to that. He said this was kind of a combination of two kind of obscure Transformers things to try to get them into a bit of a more mainstream.
Right.
And it's true, the Primes aren't like that well promoted, and the Pretenders are not very well remembered. So this is a very nice way to get it, and this is a very nice play pattern to do it. Though also, apparently, there are also Target Masters as well, since they also have a weapon.
And that makes sense, you know. I think the last gimmick to incorporate, and they'll fit it in one way or the other. So Target Masters, hey, whatever. And the Takara releases of some of the Titans of Return figures are getting the Target Masters anyway, so we know they're floating around out there. It was just a matter of how they were going to introduce it stateside.
Yeah. Yes.
So we knew that the tooling had already been done, the figures were already made. It made sense, you know?
Yeah. But then next, that was the only Prime Master figure we got from San Diego Comic-Con. Yep. The Legends figure we received was Legends Beachcomber, which is very nice since he's one of the few mini cars yet to receive a modern update. Yep,
they're checking off boxes, man. So completists out there looking for full G1 shelves and beyond, they should be excited because
yeah, which is in part why I'm surprised that they didn't properly finish Soundwave and Blaster's cassette groups.
And they may still, we don't know what form it may take.
It's totally possible, but we'll get to it later. But when they pull things like reselling Scrapnel,
right,
then I'm like, what are you doing? This could have totally been like a new figure or something, or a Redeco or something. But some of the more meat comes in the deluxe class, which had 3 figures introduced. And Matt, could you tell us what they are?
We've got Jazz in deluxe size, we've got Dreadwing, and we've got Blackwing. Where I believe
it's Dreadwind.
Dreadwind, you're right.
Yeah.
Where Jazz, I believe, looks to be fairly close to a brand new sculpt, if not maybe the bones of Combiner Wars figures.
I was looking at him recently, and it looks like he's probably going to have a similar aerial bot leg transformation, but I'm pretty sure he's an entirely new sculpt, which, considering what a couple Voyagers look like, and especially how Dreadwing and Blackwing are based on 2 aerial bot molds, that's actually almost slightly surprising.
Right. Yes, definitely. And the Dreadwind and the Blackwing molds, like I said, I never got any of the aerial bots, so I'm pretty excited. And I had a Dreadwing as a child, so I'm on board with that too. And they still have their combining gimmick, which looks good.
Yes, they do. Yeah. On top of being 5 bot combiners, they were originally able to combine their jet forms into one large jet form, and their toys are still able to replicate that, which is a very nice touch.
Yep.
And then Jazz and Dreadwind were confirmed to be Wave 1 figures, while Blackwing was confirmed to be a Wave 2 figure. So just spreading it out a little bit.
Yep.
And then we move on to the Voyagers. And the Voyager we learned about was a Voyager Starscream.
So, yeah, looking at pictures of this guy, man, Starscream's hit the gym, man. I mean, he looks pretty beefy.
Hey, he does very much look like his current IDW design, which...
That's true.
Which, I mean, is nice, but admittedly the toy does make that design look much more beefy than it does actually in the comics. And a little beefier than Starscream should be, but I mean, they probably had to take compromises for the combination gimmick.
Right.
And also, it does look a lot better for the other use in the mold. We will see for that. And when we later get into speculation, I think it will make more sense for that mold as well.
And I think it should be mentioned too that at this point in the reveals, the combining part wasn't known publicly. I mean, they had folks were saying, you know, there's combiner ports on Jazz, there's combiner ports on Starscream, but then Hasbro said nothing about it. So
absolutely, yeah. And again, Dreadwind and Blackwing were based on 2 Aerobot modes, so they obviously still had the combiner ports, and everyone was like, what? And they also mentioned that like there were all of the deluxes would have chest armor pieces that would be compatible with the Prime Masters, and that's how they integrate with them. But no one saw those because, as we learned a lot later, and we had speculated at the time, that they were going to be the hand pieces. While of note, the Voyagers all are going to receive 2 bucklers or shield things, which incorporate the Prime Masters, and those a lot of people are saying looked a lot like feet, because we did see those.
Which I'm glad for. The hand and foot gun things from Combiner Wars they served a purpose. They were good enough, but this is better. Yeah,
it's because ankle tilt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the last thing we learned about was the leader class figure. And do you want to say what the leader class figure was and what's special about this?
So for our leader class figure, we've got a Rodimus Prime, which I'm really excited about because their whole premise here on the leader class figures is like this evolution where it's going to be figures that have past versions of themselves that are going to evolve into the stronger, the leader version of themselves. So we start with Rodimus Prime that comes as Hot Rod. That looks like a very nice Hot Rod figure too, to boot.
It does.
Yeah. And then the whole gimmick is that the Hot Rod has got his trailer, his whole Winnebago backside that then flips into full-size Rodimus Prime mode that's a full leader class figure and looks really nice.
Yeah, it does. And it also comes with a matrix of leadership that is compatible with it. That the core is able to be replaced with the Prime Masters, and that's how they interact with the leaders.
Yep.
Oh, quick note, because I forgot to mention, Legends interact with the Prime Masters by the Prime Masters being able to ride inside the Legends figures.
Yes. Yeah, they're continuing. Right, exactly.
Yeah. But the leader class figure, boy, that was a shock, and boy, does that look wonderful.
Yep. And all the ones they've released that we'll talk about look good.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Even the ones that aren't like in full color yet, too.
Yep.
But the only thing I'm going to say is, like, darn it, why did they have to release such a good Hot Rod in Titan's Return, and now I got to get this one.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Small price to pay, right? I mean,
right.
Good hot rod figure. So.
Yes. So that's all that was officially revealed. And again, people at the time were speculating that combining was going to be a thing, and we didn't know about that. Brief note before we move on to more official news. The following Monday, there was a massive toy leak in regards to the Power of the Primes and a few other things, but we'll focus on the Power of the Primes since that's what this podcast is on. What was revealed was all the standard retail release product for the Power of the Primes toy line for the entirety of 2018. We had seen 4 waves of deluxes, and 3 waves of Prime Master, Legends, Voyagers, and Leaders.
Yeah, this was the over-the-shoulder pictures of someone's monitor, right?
Yeah, this was apparently like some internal documentation and came from Hasbro, and there was like a name like printed on like all of the files, and it was apparently an actual Hasbro Asia employee. So this was some internal documentation to probably promote the toy line. Oh, and also we'll bring it up here since this hasn't been properly confirmed, only teased to us. That there was confirmation that the next year's Titan class figure would be Titan class Predaking.
Yep.
That would also be compatible with the Matrix of Leadership gimmick, and come with 5 Voyager size, probably Voyager size, like how Devastator had 6 Voyager sized figures. Well, 5 Voyager sized figure Predacons.
And we sort of did have a kind of an official reveal of it with the video game. You know,
we did.
The mobile game had it. You know?
Yeah. But in terms of toy stuff, they're being pretty coy. Like the only thing official is like a part of it that came out at New York Comic Con, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But and also the thing with the Earth Wars design is that all the figures are actually based on a third-party figure design. Mm-hmm. So they're not doing a very good job of promoting their own product with that.
But, I mean, the third-party design was pretty good, so I guess, you know, one good turn deserves another, right?
Right.
Third-party borrowed from Hasbro, and then...
Yeah. And who knows, maybe the final Predaking will look very much like that third-party design, and then we'll have a very interesting legal battle on our hands.
Sure.
But we're not going to go... We'll bring it up later for the stuff that hasn't been confirmed yet. But the main reason I bring it up now was because this was highly substantial, because we got an entire years of stuff, unless they're like box sets or convention exclusives that we aren't aware of yet that will surprise us. Like, you know, Titans Return Grotesque came out of nowhere.
Right. And then shipped the next day, you know?
Yes. And then, but everything else we're going to say that was revealed through official sources was first made known to us through these leaks.
Yeah, so definitely confirmed as a real deal.
Yes. So then the next thing that happened was HasCon. And this is a little bit divided because there was like a regular HasCon, and then there was the regular HasCon tables and showings and stuff. And then there was a VIP dinner that showed off a few extra things, mostly grayscale stuff, but a few extra things. So Matt, tell us what the first thing in the list from HasCon Day 1 was.
Well, we've got the Prime Master Micronus, which is the G1 Cloudburst, and apparently it looks like that the cross sell with Optimus is going to include Vector Prime version of that.
Yes.
So that all looks good. I mean, so far so good, right? I mean.
Yeah. And everything confirmed. The only thing we knew was there was just Vector Prime, not confirmed of who the Pretender partner was.
Right.
But we already knew he was going to be in the Wave 1 with Micronus and Liege. And then going on with Legends, you can go again since the Legends was also pretty small.
Legends. Okay, so Legends were getting into my bread and butter, the Dinobots. And they're introducing I'm thinking first official female Dinobot, which looks like a legend scale velociraptor named Slash.
Yes. Its first official female toy. There has been one in the IDW fiction before by the name of Strafe.
Strafe, you're right. That was the take on the movie version of the same name, the same name,
Yeah. But this is first female Dinobot as a toy. And of note, the movie version's bio, because Dinobot Slash was first a toy in the movie toy line, the Age of Extinction toy line, and that was supposed to have a bio that described it as a girl, but that never made it to the bio, so now they've made this one female. So that's very nice to see more female Transformers in the toy line. And then we move on to the deluxes. So, the Dinobots are your bread and butter, so you can go ahead and continue on with this.
Slug, Swoop, Sludge, and Snarl. So I knew Slug is Slag, you know.
Yeah.
whatever they want to call him. But we've got two different waves. We've got Slug and Swoop as wave 1, and then Sludge and Snarl as wave 2. And for anybody familiar with the G1 toys, I had a few myself. They were able to repeat the awesome looking clear smoky-ish plastic look that the original G1 toys had, and they've incorporated it into these new figures, which I think looks fantastic. I don't know, like I was just really excited when I saw these.
I know they've had mixed reception, probably because people were more hoping for a more screen accurate view,
Right.
but they still look very nice. Like, I do think on a couple of them, like in a couple of parts, it looks a little weird, but for the most part, it looks nice. And even with Slash, who didn't have that, because she didn't have a toy initially in that time, it's still, they incorporated onto her very nice, including the colors and all the clear stuff.
Yep,
And whatnot.
and a lot of that's like, we're gonna have to wait and see what it looks like in person to really get a good beat on it.
Yes. Yeah, but all of the we got now 5 Dinobots in the toy line, and now we're going on to the Voyagers. And the Voyager toy that was confirmed was Grimlock.
Yep.
And this is the first confirmation of a combination gimmick involved with the Power of the Primes toy line, because when they revealed this, they revealed that the 4 deluxe Dinobots and Grimlock combine into the combiner Volcanicus.
Yep.
And I'm curious. You're a G1. You're a Dinobot fan. What are your thoughts on the combined form with them?
I don't need my Dinobots to combine. I thought it looked interesting, and as long as it's pulled off well, I'm fine with it. As long as the individual figures don't suffer too much because of the combiner gimmick, I'm fine with it. Like I'll probably have it combined at some point on my desk, but I could do without it. Either way,
Yeah.
I thought it looked cool. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I didn't grow up with G1, so in my mind, I'm like, there are 5 of them. Why don't they combine? They should totally combine. And then the Beast was a thing, and I'm like, maybe I don't need them to combine.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up.
If you don't know what we're talking about, don't look it up. We're just save your sanity and just don't look it up.
It's pretty
But
awesome.
this does look like a very nice interpretation. The only thing that's of note is that the Combiner Wars toy line technically had 6 figures involved, and each one with a Legends figure involved in the combination as a weapon or a chest piece of some kind, and Slash is there, but nothing we have seen so far indicates that Slash is in any way involved with the combiner.
Right, we don't know if it's a weapon, an add-on shield, or something, or maybe nothing at all. We don't know yet. It's hard to tell any tooling on the pictures of how it may incorporate.
Yeah. I think I heard someone at best thinks there might be a weapon peg on the back.
Okay.
But, maybe it might be better because, like how Crash Bash, that Time Master toy was as a gun. It was just the dino on the back pretty much.
Right.
So I'm not sure if I really need Slash to be a weapon. But I'm totally happy it's there. I'm personally glad for Volcanicus. And also of a note, they specifically mentioned first time here that there are going to be posable combiner ankles, and I'm pretty sure they mentioned that the hands that come with the deluxes, since you only need 2 of them for the hands and there are still 4 limbs, that they can either be used to buff up the chest or combine with the feet to give extra support for the overall combiner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the official reveal. The only other thing, a couple of minor things of note with that, and these kind of went under the radar a little bit, was Starscream was shown in packaging, and the side of the packaging showed an image of Starscream in his combined form, which basically had the Starscream crown head and seemed to have Ripper Snapper as a leg.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at the picture now. That the color scheme on it does. Yep, that is what it looks like, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so it seems like Starscream may not be getting a full combiner team to himself, which is a tad unfortunate. And the only other thing of note was something that wasn't confirmed at the time, but something we knew from the massive leak, was that each Voyager class is going to come with an Enigma of combination, which effectively fills in the Prime Master slot.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the Voyagers apparently are going to have a Prime Master slot on their chest. But the Voyagers will also come with an Enigma of combination to use that. And while they didn't bring it up, there were images. They were at the fair in the displays, but no one like really brought them up. And then the last thing on the list that we learned was Leader Class Optimus Prime. And Matt, what are your thoughts on that Optimus?
Well, I think the Optimus looks really good. They've had some pictures of it with the Optimus, the full Leader Class, the full combined full figure of him, paired side by side with MP10, and they look comparable together, which is kind of a big deal considering all that this Leader Class figure is going to do. But I think the real story here isn't so much the Optimus as it is the evolution of Optimus with the Orion Pax figure.
Yes. The thing about this Orion Pax, we have received some Orion Pax toys in the past. Most recently, as part of the Transformers Tribute, an Amazon exclusive thing, but right. This Orion Pax was a Titan's Return compatible figure. This Orion Pax is darn near as accurate as they're going to get with this gimmick to work to the original Orion Pax animation model from the cartoon.
Yep.
Which, I mean, 5 years ago, if you were going to say, hey, 2018, we're going to have a toy line where we're going to get combiners, the original 13, and an on-screen accurate Orion Pax, no one would have believed it.
Right, we're going to go so deep into combiners that we're actually going to give you every single combiner you could possibly think of, and an Orion Pax, and the original curvy-shouldered, kind of dumpy-ish looking Orion Pax from the TV show, just as you remember him.
Yes. And boy, does that look good. Mm-hmm. And boy, am I going to bring this up later, that I'm waiting for that toy to be retooled into Ultra Magnus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's perfect for the gimmick. Did you ever read the old Dreamwave comic books from back in the day?
Yeah, well, I never read them, but I'm like familiar with them, and I knew about the whole episode where Ultra Magnus actually derobed himself and actually was a white Optimus for a time.
Yeah, I always remember that. I like that. But yeah, you're right. That lends itself just to that gimmick here. Certainly a reason.
Now here's my question though. When they do Ultra Magnus, because I'm not saying if, I'm saying when. Basically, sure. We don't actually know this at all, but I'm saying when. Is it going to be just white Optimus, or are they going to make it Minimus Ambus?
Ooh. Before the...
Well, actually, more so white Orion Pax, because it's really an Orion Pax toy.
I'm thinking they're probably going to slap a mustache on that Orion Pax and go to town with it, because they've already acknowledged it before with the previous Ultra Magnus figure.
With the Combiner Wars leader.
Yeah,
Magnus.
who had the Minimus in him. So I don't see how you couldn't. I mean, it could certainly make him look the part. So that certainly makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I would expect like the cab would definitely be very much white, mm-hmm. and just save a lot of the coloration for the robot mode, which in how that transforms is mostly well hidden away from the main views of the cab robot, of the cab part of the vehicle. So I think they're going to do it very nicely. And then the robot mode front will be very like decorative in all of the greens and the grays and whatnot. And then the back is just going to be slab white.
Like you said, that's all speculation, but I don't see how they couldn't.
Yeah, this totally should have been towards the end when we were actually going to speculate. But we digress. And then the last thing we got officially from the panel was a silhouette of Titan class Predaking, which we all know is coming and all of that stuff. Moving on to the VIP dinner on the last night, we got a lot of grayscale images of stuff. So the first things we got were grayscales of the last two figures that we were told were going to be part of the Wave 2 Deluxes. Deluxe Moonracer and Deluxe Ripper Snapper.
Yep.
And Matt, what do you think?
again, they're getting so many characters that you never would have thought you were going to get characters of. I just Moonracer. I mean, come on. And
The only
I don't know. It's amazing how deep into it that they're getting. And I'm looking at in Moonracer. I believe, if I'm not way off base, is a retool of Cup. Is that right? I'm looking at the picture here, and I think it looks like it.
I mean, I don't like I think it's a brand new tooling.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a brand new tooling, though I'm going to say, like, a lot later on, we're going to get into some color leaked images.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, when I was looking at that, and especially with looking at the feet and how the wheels work with the feet, I'm like, is that, and especially the colors too, is that Cup's daughter?
Right. Yeah.
That's
the first thing I thought when I saw the figure. I thought that looks like Cub, but now looking at the pictures, I don't know. Either way, it looks good.
Looking at the robot mode, and like, I don't know how they'd be able to pull that out of a Cup.
Right.
Like, for the vehicle mode, I totally get where you're coming at, because that is a very boxy kind of vehicle type of thing, and you don't like get a whole lot of good images of the whole thing. But the robot mode does have very slim proportions, pretty accurate to like how the original model was on the cartoon. But yeah, Moonracer. Who would have thought we'd get a Moonracer this year? The only more obscure females they could have done were Greenlight and Lancer.
Yeah, and I don't even know who Greenlight is.
Yeah, that's also completely fair. They're so obscure. Even Fun Pub, when they had the Transformers Club license, didn't even do toys of them. They were part of the Elita's one female team in the original cartoon, but they were never named. They were just two background female schmucks.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But we're going to get to that a bit later on. So
Ripper Snapper, Hunger, Terror Con.
Yeah. We also did get a grayscale of Voyager Hunger, which the designer John Warden, I do have that in my notes right here. John Warden had to confirm that it was not a Silverbolt retool.
Okay.
It just uses the same basic idea and transformation scheme,
as a lot of these do. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Silverbolt worked, so why not? Why make something new if it works once already and fits the design well enough? And then the last thing we saw, we knew we were getting this toy because very early in the year there was a fan vote put out by Hasbro asking the fans to vote for a character that would receive a leader class toy in the Power of the Primes toy line. There were 9 characters available, and the choice was Optimus Primal. And we saw our first images of what they're doing for Optimus Primal.
Yep, and they're swinging for the fences with this one. Hopefully they can pull it off because they're trying to do a whole lot. Just looking at the grayscale models, I mean,
yeah,
we got surfboards.
Yeah, so we got Optimus Primal himself, who looks like they did show off some art of him, and he does, like, his robot mode art does still have like the furry monkey type of colors from season 1, but instead of transforming into a gorilla, he transforms into a surfboard, referencing his Transmetal body from season 2, which functions as a surfboard and is how he actually combines with the Optimal Optimus body from season 3. Which, holy crap, I never expected they were going to get season 2 referenced in that at all.
Yep. Yeah, they pulled out all the stops on this one. I think this was a big, even though you knew that a Primal was coming. I mean, the way they executed it's kind of a big surprise.
Yeah, the only sad thing is that like Optimus Primal, the deluxe figure, isn't going to actually be a monkey,
right? A
gorilla,
right?
Monkey, not surfboard. No. But yeah, and that again only test shot images, so no color images. So I'm kind of curious how the colors are going to work with that whole surfboard thing. Mm-hmm. But it still looks very, very nice. Yep. And I'm not sure if it actually has the 4 transformations, because the original Optimus had 4 modes, and I only saw 3 if I remember looking at those images correctly.
Yeah, I got the grayscale model pictures up. That's all I see yet, but who knows?
I don't think it'd be hard to make the fourth one since it was basically just the jet form, just with wheels.
Right. And there may be tooling in there for that. Who knows at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. Before we leave HasCon, very quickly they did show a couple of images of things that are definitely never going to happen.
Okay.
They very early ideas for Power of the Primes. They had leader class figures of Prima and Megatronus that were planned retools from Black Shadow, but then they were dubbed too obscure for such a class, so that was ixnayed. But I was just like, oh, that's interesting. They were actually considering putting out full figures of the Primes for this toy line. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's just an interesting thing, but not the main focus, since that's not actually going to be happening. Now, to New York Comic Con from, what was it, 2 weekends ago?
Yeah. Yes, that sounds right. We'll say yes.
Yeah. So we got a lot more revealed from this. I did not organize this list in any good order. I just wrote down everything I saw as it was coming out of HasCon. But I think the most interesting thing was the Rodimus Unicronus figure. So let's start by talking about that.
I love the look of this thing. It's almost making me question skipping the original, the regular colors hot rod, because not only, I mean, the shattered. This is all based on the shattered glass Rodimus from, what is that, the
2008 BotCon.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to briefly interject here. What we knew Rodimus Unicronus was going to be a thing from the leaks. However, what we did not know what the colors were going to be. We just saw like the original models for Hot Rod, the original cartoon models in like purples and blacks. And there were other figures of Rodimus in black colors, so a lot of people thought this might have been the dark Hot Rodimus that Takara had released for the Masterpiece toy line, which featured a lot of blues and purples, which also would have been very similar for Rodimus's look in the current IDW comics. And people thought that was going to be it, but no, it was the Shattered Glass Rodimus, and I thought, darn it, I thought I was going to be able to skip that if it was just going to be the purple blue colors, but they did Shattered Glass Rodimus, and I'm getting it now.
Yep, because they've got a nice clean looking black Rodimus or hot rod, but the beauty of the figure comes out when you get the combined Rodimus Unicronus mode, where not only does he bust out the stash, but he's got full shades on too, and it looks really cool.
It just looks so good. The base form of note is called Nemesis Hot Rod, and they're planning apparently to explain this in fiction as a corrupted Hot Rod corrupted by Unicron's influence. Though of special note is that the in-hand samples they had the purple Autobot symbols, while the official renders had Decepticon symbols on him. So the question is what it's going to be, which is also a thing that happened with Swoop. In-hand models showed like the cartoon accurate colors, while the official renders had the toy colors. The G1 toy colors.
Probably just an oversight,
Yeah, but the question is like which one it's going to be now. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting it's probably going to be the purple Autobot, as well as I expect it's probably going to be the cartoon blue. But
sure,
we'll still have.
If they're corrupted, then that would make sense that they still have their same faction symbols, albeit just, purple bad. So
yeah, especially if they're like putting on this whole shattered glass thing that they're clearly doing with this. Following on from that, we got all of the Terracons in hand, in color, apparently as part of the Halloween theme going on.
I like that blot. I like that blot a lot. Of all these, that blot looks cool. I like this.
The sad thing is, throughout the years, people thought he was just a nose monster, but the designers confirmed that he was currently and originally designed to be an ogre. So, but he is still a nose monster in the fandom's hearts.
Yep, and he nose monster. I got the picture of the G1 up. I'm looking at it, but it looks like they take some design cues once again from the third party version of this figure. Anybody that doesn't know what that looks like, you could look it up. Just plug it in Google. But he looks a lot like it, which is fine because that was a good design too. I never actually had it in hand, but I've certainly seen lots of representations of it. Looks good.
Yeah. All of them look wonderful. Sinner Twin looks great.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much paint on Ripper Snapper that I'm surprised about. Like, all of his spikes on his back are painted purple. All of his teeth are painted in gray and silver. And he's got 2 sets of teeth to work with. So.
Yep. That makes me nervous, though, because you never know how much will translate to the final product of paint, you know?
That's fair. But I hope they do keep it, since we also got confirmation here that the deluxe class, which for the generations type of figures was hovering around 17.
Mm-hmm.
Has now 15, 17, depending upon where you went, has now bumped up to meet the last night deluxe class price point of $20.
Yeah, so make everyone be aware now that your figure prices are going to bump up a bit, you know.
Yeah, and honestly, and as well as the Voyagers also bumped up to $30. But considering all of them are including at least 4 accessories for the Voyagers, that makes a bit of sense to me.
Sure.
Since they have 2 bucklers, Enigma of Combination, and at least 1 weapon. And we know Starscream's got 2 weapon accessories with him. So I think it kind of evens out, and I hope it evens out with that. Though the deluxes, it's certainly not as much of a deal, as they all have 1 weapon, 1 foot piece, and the Combiner Wars came with a free comic.
Right.
So hopefully the paint will keep up with that. Another thing to note with this is we did see a lot of the the hand chest armor things.
Right, whatever we're calling it now.
Yeah, the hand foot gun was very nice and clean, and this is going to be a little more clunky. But we also learned that all of the hands are going to be color coordinated to the deluxe figure. So that means all of the Combiners are going to have mismatched colored hands, unlike the Combiner Wars where they all had matching hands and feet.
Clean looking, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of people a tad upset about that. So for them, I'll say see what Takara ends up doing with that, and see if you're willing to pay the import price for that if they decide to, because they'll probably go back to the box sets for that, I'd say.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's going to be people a tad upset about any decision they make. So.
Yeah, and I did bring up some people oh, I don't like the clear plastic stuff on the dime. I was like, hey, it's a choice. Not everyone's going to be happy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how it looks like in the full combined forms, because even though we got all of them, we did not actually see a combined Abominus at this event.
Yep.
But continuing on, we got more Prime Masters. So Matt, go ahead and talk about what Prime Masters we saw at this event.
Okay, so we've seen Vector Prime with Metalhawk, we've seen Alchemist Prime with Submarauder, and we've seen Alpha Trion with Landmine. And it looks like all of these are going to be Target Master types.
Yes.
Well, they're going to be they're going to turn into guns and also have their shells. It's all very interesting. I'm just kind of leafing through the pictures now.
Yeah. A quick note on that with prices. Those Time Masters were $5. These are going to be $6 now. Right. Just yeah. But this also does seem like it comes with more than the Time Masters did. So this one I'm more fine with.
Right. Although that Shuffler was a darn fine figure, though.
So nice. Still need to hunt down the ram horn with that, though. But yeah. So now with all of that, we do have the first 2 waves of Prime Masters from the leaks confirmed. And then going on, the rest of what we got was the remainder of Wave 1 of the Legends, which, Matt, you can go again since I took a bit of everything.
No, it's
since
fine.
I
Go
led
ahead,
off
go
with
ahead.
everything else. Okay. So the 2 Legends figures we got confirmed were Windcharger, a new toy, and Scrapnel, who was basically a repackage of the Scrapnel we got from the Thrilling 30th toy line back in 2012, 2013.
Right, which shouldn't surprise us after Cosmos.
Yeah. But it makes me upset since, I figured they could have taken Kickback and redecode him into Ransack.
Right, yeah, you've got, 3 other Insecticons you could have started diving into, but...
Yeah. Or, you know, how many ever Bumblebee repaints they can do, since now they're going to just make the Thrall bots out of Bumblebee.
Right.
Because of animated.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. And Windcharger is interesting because that's the third version of Windcharger we've had since 2010. And Windcharger is like a nobody.
Right. He's just kind of a background G1 character. I mean, I guess he's been here or there. I'm going to tick off Windcharger fans, but you know, not all that notable in my book. But the figure looks good. You know, I'll be picking it up. So. Yeah,
definitely. I didn't actually. Actually, I ended up getting the Combiner Wars the Combiner Wars Windcharger, which was a retool of Tailgate, and now I'm probably going to get rid of that in favor of this. Right. But besides that, an interesting thing of note that happened. A thing that's going on is all of the primes are going to have special logos associated with them. And we knew some of their logos because all of the Prime Masters, instead of having a Time Master face, they're going to have their logo on their chest. And Gherkin on Twitter around New York Comic Con managed to compile a list of connecting which primes are affiliated with which images, and there's not necessarily a whole lot to talk about. I just wanted to bring that up since now we know what each of the primes are, and then there's a couple of and to note that there are a couple extra symbols that are speculative of what they're supposed to be.
Yep. For anybody that wants to look, it's Twitter @TheLastGherkin.
Yeah. I'll be editing the podcast, so some of these images will be popping up, and this one will certainly be popping up. But I will definitely link to that if you want to see the original.
But like you said, not a whole lot to talk about here. They're just matching up symbols to known names that we have released. Megatronus, Prima, just to name a few. Alpha Trion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, actually, we didn't know about Megatronus or Prima,
right.
But we did know Alpha Trion, not Amalgamous. That hasn't even been announced in any capacity. Micronus, all and just connecting it that way. And I just like it just because oh, that makes sense. It just ticks off a box in my head. A quick note: they did also apparently all of the characters are going to have bio cards, and they're going to be affiliated with one of the primes. And the only one we got confirmation of from New York Comic Con was that Scrapnel is going to be credited as Onyx, as an affiliate of Onyx Prime. Again, minor things that are not specifically relevant, but I just wanted to point that out since that was information we knew. Do you have anything else to say about all this official stuff?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay, so let's quickly recap a little bit. Just one question. If you had to pick one of these official Power of the Primes toys that one of these Power of the Primes toys that we know of, which one is your favorite currently?
Rodimus Unicronus. I think that one's captured my imagination. I definitely want to see that one. I'm excited about most of them, but that's the one where I stopped and just stared at the pictures of it. Okay, you guys got me.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. I have to go with Optimus because I've been looking for a good G1 Optimus to put into my collection for a long time, and I think this is finally going to be it. Because I didn't really start collecting until kind of recently comparatively. So I missed out on Classics Optimus, and then the Combiner Wars Optimus came out, and I'm like, that doesn't look that great to me.
That wasn't really all that good.
Yeah.
He was good as Motor Master, but not a good Optimus.
Yeah. I did get that. I did get the Power Core white deco just because to have a stand-in Nova Prime. Sure. And silently and patiently waiting for the third-party company that promised that they were going to do an upgrade kit for that for Nova. Yeah. But I still don't actually have a G1 Optimus in my collection besides the Laser Prime from the Chaos and Velocitron, but this will be my definitive Prime, and I'm happy about that. All right, now we got to go on and talk about all the unofficial stuff we know from Power of the Primes.
And it looks like there's a bit to it.
Yeah, not as much to go on, not as much to talk about, because most of it has been confirmed at this point. But I'm slightly curious if like they revealed as much as they did because of the leaks, or if they were already always planning on releasing as much information as they did up to this point.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about all the leaks and knowing almost. Well, we don't know if it's the entire line, but we know we're seeing a lot of figures here. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I like being surprised, but on the flip side, I like to be able to plan my purchases. So it is kind of nice to see where, like, if I see a drought coming up on figures I'm not interested in, then I can lean a little heavier into the current wave. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing I'm kind of convincing myself that I do like knowing this far in advance. How about you?
Yeah, I like it for knowing the kinds of crazy stuff we're getting, because not all of it's like completely crazy, but a couple of things are like, what?
Yeah,
we're
definitely.
getting that. But we'll start by looking at the Prime Master toy line. We got all of the figures we know are for waves 1 and 2. We also got the full wave 3 for the Prime Masters. So Matt, go ahead and tell us what we know for Prime Masters wave 3.
So we're getting a Quintus Prime with Bludgeon, a Megatronus with Bomb Burst, and a Solus Prime with Octo Punch. And I can't say I've actually seen these leaked pictures yet. So
those were from the leaks from a long time ago.
Okay.
From the
I
leaks
may have
from
seen them and not noticed.
Yeah, I know most of them were taken down the day after, which, I mean, at that point, a lot of people were pretty convinced that they were official. But I know RFC still has their video up with the leak cast, and they still have all of the images. Most of those images were, like, very placeholdery, and all of the Pretender shells were, like, the actual G1 Pretender shells.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what those leaks had said they were going to be.
Okay. Yeah, well, I see it now, too. It looks like... Yep, Megatronus and Bomb Burst. I had him. It's the Pretender shell that's like the bat with blue ears.
Yes.
I definitely had that one. Just looking at some of them, and then Bludgeon, obviously. If you know what Bludgeon looks like.
Yeah, of course they had to do a Bludgeon.
Yep. And Solus Prime with Octo Punch, which is Octopus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Octopus with an old Mariner's diving helmet.
Right. Which obviously would blend right in with the human populace.
Obviously.
Yep.
But going on from that, the only thing... Obviously, there's going to be more, because there clearly has to be the other 4 primes that we didn't get mentioned. Mm-hmm. But I'll talk more about that, though, when we get into the speculation later on. Going on to the legends that were leaked from that, all of the legends we got told about us were confirmed were wave 1, and they haven't done any more than wave 1. They probably did that because wave 2 has a very interesting items, I should say. The two of the 3 figures for the wave are called Battle Slash and Road Trap. Now, if you know Transformers well enough, those aren't characters. However, there is a character by the name of Battle Trap, who was a duocon, who was able to split into a car and a helicopter, was a thing. And the interesting thing is that we're definitely expecting that these two are going to combine into Battle Trap, especially since the placeholder image for Battle Slash appeared to look like the combined form between for Battle Trap.
And it's a unique look, right? I mean, it's definitely upper and lower body that are slammed together. So it's kind of it's kind of hard to miss.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting, and they're probably waiting for what's Toy Fair for that kind of news to be leaked. And then the other figure we got, well, we don't know if it's going to be Tailgate, but it was a white Wind Charger, so it's probably going to be Tailgate, since who else would it be? And then Wave 3 was a Cindersaur redecode out of Slash, and Outback redecode of Titan's Return, well, retooled probably out of Titan's Return Brawn. And yeah, that's all we got out of that. The only thing I'm going to comment about this is that if all of the complete combiners are getting weapons figures, Cindersaur is probably there to be Abominus's weapon.
Oh, that would make sense. That would fit in with the deco as well. I mean,
because
the design, yeah.
Yeah, because I initially thought like, oh, that's just there for a redeco potential. But I'm like, if they're doing, then I was like, wait, if they are going to have weapons for everything, Abominus didn't have anything, so Cinder Sword would make sense to do. And it's a fairly easy redeco of Slash. Deluxes, most of what we know is what repackaging figures we're going to get from the Deluxes. Jazz is going to be repackaged in Wave 3 along with 3 of the Terracons. Three of the new Terracons, because Ripper Snapper is Wave 2, and then Hunger is going to be Wave 2, and then the rest of the Terracons will be released Wave 3 alongside a repackaging of Jazz. And then Blackwing, Slug, and Ripper Snapper will also be a part of Wave 4, along with the one new figure of the wave, which is a trend I'm starting to hate with like Slug Slinger and Cogman.
Right, which is making finding them impossible.
Yeah. But the new figure of the wave is Nova Star, a new name for Firestar.
Oh, okay.
Which...
I didn't know about this one.
Yeah, this was also part of that same old league system. And holy crap, 4 female Transformers in one toy line, and the toy line's not even over.
Yep.
I'm like, that's a record. That's a sad record, but that's a record.
I mean, it's the trend going in the right direction, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could probably count Victorion, but that was one box set.
And that was a fan choice, too, so...
Yeah. So it's nice to see. Well, actually, I say 4, but we haven't talked about 4 yet. We've only talked about 3.
Right.
In the Voyagers, we got Alita 1 as a retool of Starscream.
Yep, definitely looked like a retool. That looks like Starscream. Yep.
Yeah. The main... I know people have been upset that, like, it's not a truck or a car of some kind. But I'm like, this works. In terms of, like, the beefiness of the mold, that fits a lot more with Alita 1, especially in the IDW, than it does more so Starscream. And you know what? The only other toys we've had of Alita 1 are motorcycles and a boat.
Yep. And when you see the release, the images, like, even before I saw the name, they nailed it. At least in the graphics that we see, they've nailed the head sculpt. Because I picked that out right away. I'm like, that's Alita 1. They did a good job on that. So, good to them.
Yeah, and that will be joining Hunger in Wave 2. And then in Wave 3, we're apparently getting a Grimlock repackage, though that's a little interesting because it's different Grimlock stock artwork than we got for the Wave 1 Grimlock. So people are expecting it's going to be a redeco of some kind, but it's still listed as Grimlock.
I wonder if they would do the G2 redecos, because that would seem like an easy repaint, and certainly Completus would go, be all over that. So
yeah, it also had a different like ID number for the toy, so people are speculating stuff on that, but it's still listed as Grimlock and looked like Grimlock, just in a different pose. I have speculation about what I'd like it to be, even though it might not be, but we'll get to that once we finish through all this leak stuff. But the other thing we got in Wave 3 was Inferno, who is a retool of Hotspot from Combiner Wars.
Right, which is sort of the obvious. I think this was the one that people questioned. Where was this before? I think everybody immediately figured that was going to be the follow-up.
Yeah.
That made sense. It was a no-brainer, but they waited till this line to release it. So
from my understanding, they had the tooling for that as an option, but they never went ahead and used it. So now they're taking advantage of it now.
Yep, and Completists clap their hands and celebrate. So.
Yep. And then there was absolutely nothing new for the leader class, because we know everything. We learned everything from the leader class from official sources. That we know, that for 2018. However, all of that information was revealed, but then a lot of later leaks have a lot better images of a lot of these figures.
Yeah, it looks like they're cropped off the box art or the packaging.
Yeah. There were 3 separate news articles that happened that I do want to glance over, since this is kind of running a little longer than I expected. The first one showed combiner torsos for Starscream, Alita 1, and Inferno. predominantly. And of note, it seemed that the torso for Elita 1 used Jazz as a leg. And
I'm pulling up the pictures. Yeah.
And Inferno used, I want to say, Slug or Snarl. I'm forgetting right now, and I thought I wrote it. Oh yeah, it was Slug. I wrote it down. Slug as a leg, and possibly Moonracer as an arm. That arm corner looks a little weird, but that coloring looks like Moonracer's coloring for Inferno.
So they reintroduced the Enigma combination, which is basically their get out of jail free card. They can do anything they want.
Yeah.
It just, say that's the reason.
Yeah.
So, it certainly makes sense in that perspective.
Yes. And the only thing that makes me sad about that is that we won't be getting complete teams of those guys either, which really makes me upset because I was really hoping for an Elita 1 female Autobots team. Because
and you never know. You never know what they'll pull out later.
Yeah. They could totally do that. That might be exclusives, or that might be like the Wave 5 and 6 that we'll probably speculate on later. Mm-hmm. But this is probably going to be like their official combination until those figures come out, if they come out. But I would really like a full Elita 1 combiner. The next leak had a lot of stock photos for a lot of the figures we did not see from Hasbro before, including Elita 1, Inferno, Moonracer, and a number of the deluxes utilizing the chest armor. And
yes, it almost kind of looks like a makeshift Matrix chamber. I mean, when I first saw the pictures, I'm like, so they're all getting in this. They're all going to be able to carry the Matrix. Is that what this is? So however they spin it,
they're all able to hold the cores at the very least.
Right.
Also, some people commented that they kind of look like they're like the baby bags that like you can wear on your front.
Yep.
Because
it does look, yes.
Because holy crap, does that make them look very bulky?
But they had to figure out something there.
Yeah, I'm sure it may look better in person, but like again, these are only like stock images we've got. And then we also got some in-package photos of like Micronus, Vector Prime, Windcharger, Scrapnel, Slug, and Swoop. With that, and then we got a lot of and then the final thing gave us a lot of card art of figures and confirmed that a bunch of figures are going to be what figures are going to be affiliated with which primes. Swoop with Alpha Trion, Rodimus with Alchemist, Slug with Nexus, Jazz with Onyx, Dreadwind with Alchemist, and Optimus with Onyx. And then also some like instruction artwork for Starscream, Elita 1, and Abominus in their and Hunger in their torso forms.
Yep. Nothing earth-shattering there. Just
no.
Good artwork though. I mean,
yeah.
They certainly do it. They hit home runs with some of this artwork because. Like I said, admittedly, I throw most of the cards, and I definitely throw all the packaging away. But I enjoy it while I'm ripping into it.
Yeah, and the only thing really of note is that Starscream and Elita do seem to have a substantially different amount of tooling for their chests, for their chest forms, which is surprising. I didn't expect that much from what we can gather from the line art. But yeah, that's most of it. I'm not sure if like you have any other opinions on any of this stuff.
They've been, ever since Generations came out, it seems like they've been kind of on a roll. I mean, and love or hate the movies, however you feel about them, the revenue from the movies have made all this stuff possible. So
yes,
you gotta kind of live with one to have the other. So if you love the movies, great, you win. If you don't, then at least you can go into Target or wherever and buy the cool stuff.
Yeah. And that's pretty much all of like a lot of the news. There are only two other minor points I want to talk about before we get into speculating what other things are going to come. Firstly, along with like the whole Rodimus Unicronus thing, with the difference between the Autobot and Decepticon symbols between the in-hand model and the stock, the promo image stuff. Cutthroat also had that happen to him, with his official imagery having his regular head, but apparently the in-hand model having a head design more akin to the Pretender monster Wildfly which
that's about.
Which suggests that they're thinking there's a Monstructor in the works.
Okay.
Which would be very interesting, to say the least.
Which would be the obvious retool here of this. I mean, you got to think Hasbro's not going to come out with something that they can't at least get one other mold out of, or
and
one
like
other character out of.
Yeah, and like Cutthroat seems to be a heavy retool of Swoop, but they can still certainly get more out of it.
Right.
And like Monstructor is obviously a good place. He's one of the last very few combiners that has not been touched upon yet. And there weren't a whole lot of that many combiners in G1 anyway.
Right, and at this point it's like you may as well go for it.
Yeah. So that suggests that there might be a Monstructor in the works. That'll be more in speculation. And the other thing is Japan has a special redeco of Fortress Maximus as a Japanese exclusive character, Brave Maximus, which is only getting produced if it has 2,000 pre-orders on it. But if it hits 3,000 pre-orders, it's going to include a small Pretender suit for the head, for the very small Titan Master head. And people have pointed out the tooling, the chest design, the details in that appear akin to the chest details of Wave Rider, who is another Pretender. So that suggests that one of the last 4 Prime Masters we're looking at is probably going to be affiliated with Wave Rider. Which makes sense since we got the Landmine and Cloudburst who were wave mates with him.
I've got nothing to add to that.
I just got news. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. So that's 3 to 4 waves of stuff we've got for Power of the Primes, for the Power of the Primes toy line. From previous notions, we're going to get 5 to 6 waves of product.
And the leaked slides had the time frame for the waves too, didn't
Yes. Wave 1 was this December, so the first quarter is getting ready for Christmas. And then they were released at quarterly intervals throughout. The only exception was, like, for the last quarter, did not have Prime Master, Legends, Voyager, or Leader, which, again, seems to be part of the new Hasbro formula for releasing figures, with, like, one new deluxe figure being the last quarter of the year, which I don't like.
No. Good luck finding your sludge slingers.
Yeah, good luck finding your Nova Stars for this. It's not going to be that bad since it's not going to be the end of the series. But it's certainly going to be weird. Yeah, and apparently no one's getting Cogman.
No, not unless... Yeah, you had to jump on that early, and then I hope you got
Jump on that. Well, apparently Big Bad Toy Stores will be releasing the entire case assortment. But probably not going to be selling it individually, so you're going to have to buy the entire case assortment, which is probably figures you've already bought.
Right.
But it might be worth it for Cogman. And then you get 2 Cogmans, and then you can sell the other one off to people who didn't buy it and probably make your money back.
Yep.
But regardless, 2 waves, probably I suspect at least 2 waves of every size class for the first half of 2019 before we get into whatever the next Generations themed series is going to be.
Which we don't know. Where before we knew that it was going to be a 3-part Prime trilogy, and this wraps that up. So, as far as I'm aware, we don't know what's on the horizon past this, do we?
Yeah. The only thing we know is that they know what they're doing up to 2021.
Okay.
That's all we know. So, yeah, the important question is, what is next? Well, actually, that's not the important question right now.
It is certainly an important question.
It is an important question. The more important question is, what are the last things we're going to see from Power of the Primes? So, let's just start with Prime Master, since that's pretty straightforward. There are 12 Primes, because they classify the 13th as the Matrix. So that leaves Prima, Nexus, Honest, and Amalgamus, all needing figures in Prime Master size class. The only question is what pretenders they're going to be affiliated with. And with the Brave Maximus thing I mentioned before, likely one of them is going to be Wave Rider.
So that checks one off.
Yeah. And then after that, I was having a hard time figuring out what other pretenders they would do. Because the pretenders weren't really that popular. And they really like checked off like the big name ones. The only ones I could come up with were Stranglehold, who was originally wave mates with Bludgeon and Octopunch, just to fill out that series. And then my best guesses were Carnivac and Catilla, one being an Autobot Pretender Beast and one being a Decepticon Pretender Beast, for the listeners that might not know. And those would also probably be good retools of each other.
Okay.
Do you not know who these two are?
I don't. These are lots of names that I don't recognize.
Okay. Yeah, again, these are also obscure characters, but I'm pretty sure both Carnivac and Catilla had a bit of popularity in Simon Furman's Marvel UK run.
Okay.
So that's why I picked them out.
And that seems to be that seems to be the obscure stuff that they're reaching for. So you could absolutely be spot on.
Yeah. And I think that would make sense with Onyx being affiliated with Beast Former, so he would likely have a Beast Pretender type of suit. And then getting a retool out of that to make more use of that mold would make sense. So that's my best speculation on that. Sure. If you have any other speculation in regards to that,
nope.
He's shaking his head nope. So let's move on to what we could think Legends has. I'll let you start. Do you have any ideas what you think the Waves 4 and 5 of the Legends class could contain?
Like as far as retools or brand new figures or
anything?
I'm trying to think
from what you think is likely to what you want to see.
I'm trying to come up with. See, what mini bots have we not seen yet? You mentioned Outback as a possible.
Yeah, Outback was from the leaks was for Wave 3.
Yeah.
Quite likely. The main things are a lot of the throttle bots have not seen the light of day.
Throttle bots, Omnibots.
And what was I going to say? Also, Hubcap has not seen a release. Though I'm curious how likely they were to do that, since that's also pretty much a yellow Bumblebee.
Right. Well, you've got some variations of Bumblebee too that could eventually show up.
Cliff Jumper has not been released, has not been affiliated, and I'm surprised that hasn't happened.
I mean, like you said, Hubcap, a Bumble Jumper. You could do.
They could do Wasp maybe from animated.
Right. They're going so obscure. I don't know if I could out obscure them with any characters. You know.
Yeah. The only other thing of kind of like that kind of quality of like a redeco of like Titans Return stuff. The only things I could think of are like, giving us Frenzy and Frenzy and Eject finally.
Right, the complete out.
And Redeco Kickback and a Ransack, which again, like I said before, I thought would have been an obvious choice since that is Prime Master compatible, while Scrapnull is not.
Right. He's just a re-release.
Besides all of those, I have two more wild speculations. The one I think is more likely. The one I think it has the potential to being likely for a reason. The first one, since we're getting the Battle Trap, we're likely getting the Battle Trap, I also expect we'll get a Flywheels.
Okay.
Of that kind of a caliber. 2 different Legends figures, whoever and whatever wheels. Or Skytread, because that's the name he had in the Titans Return. Yeah. That's my biggest possibility, and I feel like they could probably do Titans Return level of retooling to get that to work out of Battle Trap and get more use of that out of that.
Right, with the retooling, they've shown there's no limit to their retooling. So
you got Scourge into Highbrow into Windblade. You got a flying bathtub into a twin propelled helicopter into a VTOL jet.
Yep.
The only other figure I can speculate for Legends class is a character by the name of Jalgar.
You got me there too.
Okay, have you heard of the Breast Force?
No, keep going.
Okay. So the Breast Force were a combiner group from Transformers Victory, a Japanese exclusive film.
Gotcha.
There were 6 of them in total, and they kind of got a release in the Combiner Wars toy line as a Platinum Edition exclusive. The 4 main limb guys were released, but the main thing is the 2 bots that make up the torso, Leozak and Jalgar, did not get released, instead having a Skylinks redecode into a Deathsaurus to make up that torso.
Okay.
So, and we'll get this into the Voyages, but Leozak is a character that was a jet, that was a combiner, and I also expect that he could be retooled out of Starscream, since he also has a very similar like chest configuration for the combined mode that I think is possible. So then Jalgar is the last man out, so Jalgar also was a Doom Buggy type of thing and could be a straight up Redeco with a new head out of Beachcomber. Yeah, I'm going wild with this a little bit, I think.
But they've shown that they can do that, so it won't be surprising for sure.
Yeah, and that would certainly be a hope, and I have absolutely no idea how likely that would be. Okay, on to the deluxe figures.
So there's only 2. While you were asking about the other ones, I did think about the deluxe figures. As far as, again, I'm a Dinobot guy, so I kind of have fingers crossed for a Paddles. I mean, if we're getting, we're getting a Sludge, how hard would it be to retool Sludgy there into Paddles? For anybody that doesn't know, Paddles is sort of an obscure Dinobot that turns into what the heck is it called?
It's basically what people think the Loch Ness Monster is.
Correct.
It's
Elasmosaur.
Yeah, it's a very aquatic, long-necked.
Per the wiki.
It's a very long-necked aquatic dinosaur.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. The only other Dinobot that I've always been interested in that I never really got any play was Scar.
Yes.
If you're aware of IDW's Scar, who I believe turns into an Ankylosaur.
I don't know if he turns into Ankylosaur. I'm pretty sure he died before he was actually able to transform into anything. But I have thought the same thing. I would love to see Scar, and I would love to see an Ankylosaur amongst the Dinobots.
Yeah, it's a good fit. And if you look at the one picture of Scar that exists, it's not that far removed to think that that's what it could be.
Yeah.
Fans Project's Dinobots had a release of a silhouette that looked exactly like this that I thought was going to be a Scar alike that turned into an Ankylosaur. So clearly we're not the only ones that think that. But it would be a good fit and probably a fairly easy retool of Slug or whatever they're calling him now.
It's actually Sludge. They actually got the Dinobot.
No, for the Dino.
Slug.
For Slag.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying Slag would be a good retool into an Ankylosaur.
Yeah, he's now Slug because it's a naughty war up in the UK.
In Britain, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's if you had to change the character's name, that's like a completely legitimate reason.
Sure.
I do have to say, on my way out there thing, if we're getting a Paddles, I would say we're getting a Green Light and Lancer. Those 2.
You would hope.
Yeah. And then we got 5 female Autobots, and then we got that entire combiner team.
I think the only thing with the female Autobots is that you're talking about all the teams of them. It seems like, I know we just got a Nautica figure, but she was so hard to track down. She's popular in the comics right now.
Yeah.
I think that's a missed opportunity not coming out with a standalone figure of that. Even if it's a release, Power of the Prime's release of the Titans Return figure or a new retool. I mean, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I'd like an Nautica figure, but I'm not hunting down the box set for just the one.
Yeah. That's completely fair because when I was making this tentative idea list in my head, I know those would be offshots, very unlikely ideas, and I'd crap my pants if Hasbro actually did something like that. Because
right.
These are characters FunPub hasn't even bothered to recognize, and you're doing toys of them. So I had thought they could do an RC, they could do a Chromia to make up the female combiner. I'd rather not see an RC just because she wasn't actually part of Elite One's team, and like see another Chromia instead. But then that would leave, there would still have to be a fifth figure if there was going to be a complete female combiner. So it's like, maybe they do Velocity from the comics as well. But Nautica would also be a very nice choice.
Yep.
And
Velocity, yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah. My only issue with that was like she's got the same coloration as Moonracer does. So I'm like, how could they?
She's got a very unique head sculpt though.
She does.
And look about her. So, you know.
But yeah, unless if it was a completely new mold, it would probably be a retool of that mold, which of note, Nova Star seems to be a retool of Moonracer from the limited images we had, which again we're all just hand drawn stuff, but that's what it seems to be.
Right, all speculative at this point.
Yeah. The only other things before New York Comic Con, I was trying to figure out like ways to complete like the Starscream, Inferno, and Elite One teams. But I'm honestly probably going to shove that to the side and ignore that, because on TFW 2005, some people were commenting they think there could be a C-Con combiner in the works. Expecting the combiner torso Snaptrap to be a heavy retool out of Hunger, and then the limbs coming from different places.
Like you said, there's checking off boxes, so it wouldn't be that far out.
Yeah, and the C-Cons were also a relatively popular combiner, I feel. I would love to see a C-Con combiner, because that was actually the first G1 toy I was able to get.
So that has a bit of special meaning to you.
Yeah. It's funny. I got the 2010 reissue of it, but I was in college and I was doing a study abroad in the Czech Republic, and we stopped at a bus like a bus station, and it was had a lot of shops there. I went into a Toys R Us in there, and they had them on the shelves in like 2014.
Wow. I'm
like, that was a wonderful find, and it was $60, and I'm like,
yeah, what are the odds of that?
Right. That was just an interesting find, and like that is a little special to me, so I'd like to see that. So I would like to see those other combiners complete, but I think more so I would like to see that happen, and all 5 of the limb bots get deluxe scale figures.
And you know, one thing, if we're still on, especially with like the deluxes, that just occurred to me that I feel like is kind of a big gaping hole, is that they released a Leader class Starscream and a Voyager class Starscream here, but I would like the troop build Seekers, and I really dig the Generations Deluxe class Starscream or Classic Starscream that came out years ago.
Yes.
And I'm thinking it's about time, man. I mean, we need, especially since we got our Misfire, Sludge Slinger, and what's his name? Trigger Happy.
Yeah.
That look, I mean, I got them on my shelf right here in front of me, and they look really nice as a team together. I know they're not, but as retools, they still look clean together.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, man, where's our Seeker guys? You were talking about characters that are important to you. As a child, I only ever owned one VHS of the original G1, and that was the episode Divide and Conquer, if you're familiar.
Yes.
That features the Rainmakers.
Yes.
And the Rainmakers are my favorite subgroup, my favorite obscure subgroup. I need them, man. I need someone to make these figures. Yeah. Come on, Hasbro. I know you're listening.
Yeah.
The
only thing I'm going to counteract with that is I don't think they're doing it with this Voyager Starscream.
No, and I don't want them to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that would be very expensive very fast to get.
Sure. Which is why I was saying a new deluxe mold for a Seeker is what I'd be interested in. Because I know that I thought that was a missed opportunity too, because you had the Ghost Starscream that released for Combiner Wars. That was a special exclusive. That was hard to get, that I never saw. It was Grand Galvatronus? Was that right?
Yeah, it was Grand Galvatron for the Japanese version of the Cyclonus, and they just gave him a whole set of original limbs.
Like, if you went that far, especially if you tooled a Seeker head, because let's face it, all the Seeker heads are fairly close to each other.
Yeah.
Once I saw that, I thought, well, we're going to see the Skywarp Thundercrackers and your Coneheads, yada yada, but they never did.
No.
So
The best we got was the last Fun Pub figure being a Shattered Glass Starscream out of that mold. Which, like, nice, but...
yeah, I mean, it seemed like no-brainers to me, but, like I said, we still have lots that we don't know about this line or the line that comes after it, so...
Yeah. Honestly, before, like, we didn't know Power of the Primes was going to be the next toy line, but we didn't know what it was going to be for quite a while. And I was trying to figure out what kind of a toy line that could be beforehand. And I did wager on there being a new Seeker Deluxe mold, especially with how, like, the Titans Return Blur and Chrome Dome molds have what look like null rays on them.
That's true. And then we've seen how versatile, especially the Blur mold is. Because I'm looking at Brainstorm, and I'm thinking, Brainstorm and Blur sitting side by side is really an RC. I don't have RC, but I know I've handled her. They look great together, and while they are exactly the same transformation, more or less, they're still unique enough on the shelf.
Yeah. Even Nautica. I do have a Nautica.
A Nautica, right? I've never seen Nautica in person, so.
Yeah, I mean, Nautica is mainly just purple Blur with fans stuck into shoulder ports on the shoulders and new face, but even that is still distinct enough. Granted, also any level of extra paint applications makes the Blur mold stand out compared to what it originally was.
Right.
But yeah, I am a bit surprised that we're not getting more Seeker Gate. The last time they tried that was Combiner Wars with the leader Starscream giving us Thundercracker and Skywarp. Which I'm surprised they even did that, because that's was $135 right there just for the three of them.
Right.
So yeah, but actually that is a pretty good transition into the Voyager class discussion. And with our comments on Skywarp and Thundercracker, I don't think it's likely we'll see them, or at the very least we're going to see both of them.
Yeah, isn't that annoying? You only get one or the other.
Yeah, because we already got Alita 1 out of the Starscream mold, and like Hasbro would probably be okay with using four uses of basically the same mold to just save on money. But especially for the Voyager, just to have a little more variety for the fans, I think they would maximize that at 3. So my bet is either it's going to be Skywarp because black repaints, or that will be Leozak, as I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. And Leozak does, like I said, Leozak would just be new heads and a new coloration, and that I think would be possible. I do have 2 alternate options, just from other things. We do have Inferno coming. And we did have reports that like Hotspot had pre-tooling to make an Inferno. There was also a similar report that Onslaught had pre-tooling to make Armada Demolisher out of him.
Okay.
So I'm just like throwing that out there as a possibility. They've probably still got that tooling, so that's an option. Last thing I would suggest for what a potential Grimlock Redeco could be is Beast Wars Megatron.
And I think he's somewhere hiding amongst all of this. You almost can't do. How can you do a Primal without a Megatron to go with? So I think you're right there. It's going to show up sooner or later. It's just a matter in what form.
Yeah. Well, it's more so whether it's going to be colored after the season 1 or the season 2 Transmetal 2 body. If it's going to be the current Grimlock, I'd like to see that on the Transmetal 2. That like nice.
I was always partial to the first season version of him, but that's just me.
Yeah, I was a bit partial to the season 2. Mm-hmm. But both season 1 and season 2. If I had to fight it out, it would be season 2 just by a smidge. Mm-hmm. But especially since that's a much more mechanical looking dinosaur as opposed to a more flesh looking dinosaur.
And would fit in much better, yeah.
Yeah. And this would also, and just to back that theory up, there were reports when Fall of Cybertron Grimlock hit the shelves back in 2012 that was going to be retooled into Beast Wars Megatron, and they showed a test shot with the Beast Wars Megatron head on it. So just some ideas there. Mm-hmm. Unless you got any, you haven't mentioned anything on the Voyager side of things. So do you have any?
Considering that they're retooling, they're getting Elita 1 out of Starscream. Anything goes, man. I can't think of anything Voyager specific.
Yeah. I think most likely, though, most of hope is that we will get a snap trap for the Seacons out of Hunger, which a lot of people are speculating about, which would be so nice. Just be so nice. Okay, the last category we got to talk about for speculation is the leader class figures. So I'll let you go ahead if you got any ideas for this.
I think you recap on your idea. I think the Ultra Magnus sounds right. It checks all the boxes and certainly would lend itself to being an interesting retool. So I almost feel like that's a lock. Past that, I don't know, because the Rodimus figure, besides heavy retooling into something that my brain can't even imagine what it would be, the Shattered Glass is the obvious one, which we're getting. So past that, nothing off the top of my head I can think of that they would, if you have any ideas.
Yeah. Out of Rodimus, I don't think so, and that's why I think we're getting like that Shattered Glass Rodimus to get used to the mold. However, I'm going to say we could get a completely brand new mold, since the Titans Return, I believe, had 4 distinct leader class molds, being the 6-shot mold, the Soundwave mold, the Optimus mold, and then the Black Shadow mold. So that's 4 unique molds for the leader class. And we do have 3 with Optimus, Primal, and Rodimus. And then there were 6 leader classes in total, and then Rodimus Unicronus checks off Ron, the obvious Ultra Magnus would check off 2. So my speculation, and a lot of people's speculation, is the last figure would be Star Saber.
Yeah, I just as you were saying that, I thought, okay, that's perfect. Yeah. And he was also in the fan vote, right?
He was in the fan vote, and his original toy also had a gimmick where he was a smaller robot called Saber that upgraded into the full Star Saber.
I'd buy that.
So, a lot of people, however, have wanted to see Star Saber and Death Source together, but I don't see that happening because that would be 2 completely new molds. There's not really a slot for that. Right. And Death Source didn't have that kind of a gimmick to him. I think possibly if they want to go ahead with that, they'll do Death Source and whatever comes out for 2019 into 2020.
And then they're not afraid to do that, so could be.
Yeah. So that is what people want, but I don't think that's going to be likely. I just want to put it out there and just give my 2 cents on that. Last thing I want to quickly say about that, this is a very ballpark idea, but it's an idea that could work. Nova Prime.
And that would make my buddy at work very happy.
Yeah. I could see, like, how this gimmick works, I could see that working. With what I think they'd want to do, I don't think they do that. I do think Star Saber is a bit more likely, since they have been pulling in some Japanese exclusive stuff because, we got Overlord this year. And Black Shadow is also a Japanese exclusive character. And, that would also add on to, if, in fact, we are getting Leozak out of a Starscream mold. They were all from Victory, so Star Saber being a counterpart to Leozak. Until we get to Death Source. Yeah, it all makes sense. Yeah. So, you got any other thoughts on potential seeings of from the Power of the Primes toy line?
You think we'll be getting an Omega Supreme?
Not in Power of the Primes, because the Power of the Primes toy line would end by the time the next Titan class figure would come out. And I have heard other people commenting, especially with what IDW is up to, that there's a lot of hints pointing towards Unicron being the Titan class figure after Predaking. which would be nice to get a new Unicron mold.
Yeah, considering the Armada Unicron, the reissue that they had. I was just talking about this the other day. The reissue of the Armada Unicron mold. What does that run for now? 120, 150?
150 for the release, for an official release. The Cybertron Primus from 2006 is $150 for the Last Night toy line at Toys
and
R Us.
that's almost a one-for-one release of it with some slightly color variations, right? It should be...
Well, it's a substantially large color variation, but there was no retooling to it.
But the Unicron, I have him sitting over on my TV stand over there from the original Armada release, and I paid $50 for that dude in the store and was happy about it now, thinking, at the time I wasn't, but now I'm thinking, glad I picked it up then.
I remember that when I remember there was a 2010 release of Unicron. I saw it at Toys R Us once and I didn't get it, and I
forever haunts you.
Sincerely. Yeah.
I'm going to feel that way about Devastator. I could have picked up the Combiner Wars Devastator in Toys R Us for sub $100 one day, and I didn't. And yeah, here I sit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Unite Warriors one is probably a bit better because it's got better articulation. It comes with their individual weapons. I haven't done any Japanese imports, so I still sprung for the stateside Devastator, and that's substantial for me. But that'd be nice to get one day. Before we end this, and this is running longer than my podcast normally do, but hey, it's a podcast. It can run however long it wants. What do you think about box sets for Power of the Primes? Because we've had an interesting up and down with box sets recently. Because Combiner Wars had so many box sets, and there were so many box sets that didn't sell. Then for Titans Return, we were led to believe there were going to be 4 box sets, but we only got 2
that were hard to track down. Still continue to be. I think box sets for if they follow the trend from Titans Return, their box sets from Titans Return, at least the one I know of, tend to go hand in hand with what was happening currently in IDW with Metal Hawk and the Nauticas and your characters that they're featuring there. So I don't know, hard to say. I think it's gonna have a lot to do with their tie-in with IDW Comics with Power of the Primes, and then whatever the status quo is within the series at that point. At least for one of the box sets. Who knows about the other ones?
Well, here's my stronger question. Do you think they'll do Titans Return like box sets, where it's just an assortment of characters in a box set? Or we're going to get Combiner box sets? Because there's a couple of extra options. Because I brought up the whole Monstructor thing before and didn't have him listed. With how I have plotted him out in my head as potential retool options, with the character Wildfly being based on Cutthroat, Ice Pick based on Blot, Bristleback based on Slug, while the Scowl based on Blot again, Slog just for not really a better option, Grimlock, and then the 6-figure Birdbrain not really having anything. That being a box set itself, since those would probably be light retools with some coloration changes. And then as well, they could completely redeco all of the Dinobots into the character of Dino King, again, from another Japanese series. And then just leave the one that's not, because there are 6 of them. 5 of them match 1-for-1 for Dinobot characters. And then the last one would have been an Ankylosaur. So if we do get Scar, they could get him out. But that could be a potential other box set. And then, and then cha-ching, we've pretty much checked off every single Combiner from G1 and the Japanese G1 stuff, except for Raiden and Landcross, I think. Some of those weird Combiners. There's one that's a train. That's a Combiner, which would be nice to see, but that's very out there and would need a lot of retooling.
For your question that you asked, I'll counter it with if if Power of the Primes is a culmination of both Combiner Wars and Titan's Return, then if I had to speculate, I'd say we may get both styles of box sets. We might get one that is your Combiner and one that is the collection of characters, or two of each, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's more likely, especially if I don't know what the sales figures are like, but I know that the Combiner Wars box sets, they probably had quite a few of those things sitting around collecting dust. Hence the $30 box sets that went on eBay last year or 2 years. It had to have been 2 years ago.
There was an online retailer selling the G2 Bruticus for like $25 a couple of weeks ago.
So that kind of answers that question. If they scale back how many they do, make it a little harder to get, but not as hard as some of these box sets from the last one. Somewhere between, they might find their sweet spot.
Yeah, because what probably happened with the Titan's Return box set is that they saw the bad sales and the stores also probably saw the bad sales on the Combiner Wars on some of the Combiner Wars box sets, didn't want to take them on, so Hasbro was forced to cut and then release them limitedly for New York Comic Con and HasCon in the way they did for what they wanted to get their money back on. But that is a very good option that they could do both, since, again, with what I'm suggesting, there would only be 2 box sets, and they could want to do more since Titan's Return this year did pretty well, and not have too much, but like maybe give us 4, and then like have finish off the firepower and intelligence sets, and label them as those. The only other question then would be what characters would appear in those. Because they would have to be retools and recolors of existing characters. The best I could figure is like probably get a Nemesis Prime out of Optimus Prime for a leader figure. I don't even know what the other leader figure could be.
We're due one of those, aren't we?
Well, the U.S. is due one. Japan just got one out of the Voyager. And unless you want to count Primitive Skateboarding Prime as a Nemesis Prime. Yeah. But yeah. You have any other last thoughts? Because I think we're about done here.
We covered everything pretty good. Yep.
Yeah, and we went a whole lot longer than I expected, but yeah, that pretty good coverage. So yeah. So I hope you all enjoyed our news reporting and our opinions on all of this stuff and our speculation. If you have any opinions or speculation for what to expect from Power of the Primes, leave your comments down in the description below. And thank you for joining me today, Matt.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
I'm pretty active on the forums, on the Transformer World forums. I'm Partsformer on there. On Twitter, I'm at Biohazard2M. So you can always hit me up there. I'm usually posting pictures here, there, just general screwing around.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all that we have to say. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SoundJack426. Also, please consider donating on my Patreon page to help support the channel. All of the links, including the links to Matt's stuff, will be in the description below. Thanks for tuning in. This is SoundJack and Matt signing off.